What is the X factor for successful companies? What we're talking about today in the eCentral Business Show. I'm John Nayler. I'm joined by Don McKenzie from Adizes.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, I saw you in action a couple of weeks ago. Very informative stuff around this Adizes model and that sort of thing. And it sort of came to be that question in my mind is, what is this X factor around successful companies? Because it's a bit more complicated than just throwing money and people into jobs, yeah? Or at a problem.
Yeah, we find that if it was just a function of good ideas, good people, access to resources, those kinds of things, companies would be successful for a much longer period of time, if that's what all was required.
And more frequently. And
more frequently. You'd see it. I meet no shortage of people with great ideas, with lots of passion, but they don't go anywhere. And so obviously that is absolutely required for success, but we sort of have found that it's not sufficient by itself for success. You've actually got to have some other ingredients, or an X factor, as you put it. And that even if you have great resources, great ideas, great technology, great all of those things, if you aren't able to identify and resolve problems really quickly, and identify and capitalize on opportunities faster than your competitors, you're going to fall behind. You're either not going to be successful or you're going to lose that ability. And so really being able to understand that, yes, you need to have all that threshold level of resources and great ideas and good timing and access to markets and relationships and all of that. But if inside your culture, inside your organization, whether it's 2 people, 200, 2 million, doesn't really matter. If you aren't identifying problems really quickly and solving them, or capitalizing on opportunities faster than your competitors, you end up not being successful.
So is this something that you know, when you plant a seed, when you have a startup or something like that, do you need to go make sure that you've got this X factor? I guess the question is, like, we see it so often, like people, well, for themselves, the market, people come to me and say, got this great idea, going to take on the world, and you go, well, that's going to do you the first couple of years.
Yeah, we find that it's a sequence that's the key thing. So if the analogy that we use, if you wanted vegetables to come out of your garden, you can't just walk to your garden and say, give me vegetables. Yeah, okay. And it's a bit like if you want success in business, you can't just go, give me success. You will get vegetables if you have the good seeds, or a seed or a plant, but there's other sequence. It's got to be planted in the right soil, in the right conditions. It's got to have water for the entire life. You've got to be able to keep the locusts and the pests off.
And get the seasons right as well.
Get the seasons right. If you do the right things in the right sequence, you have a higher chance of success. And so often what happens is people are successful and they talk about the product, they talk about the market, some even talk about the timing. But what they often don't talk about is the sequence of ingredients and the conditions that were right for that idea to flourish. And one of the things important early on in the sequence is an ability to identify and address problems really quickly. And often we find that there are great ideas and things come up, but they haven't identified a problem. Even if they have identified the problem, they haven't been able to decide what to do about it. Even if they've been able to decide what to do about it, some companies haven't been able to implement it. And so if you haven't got that sequence, if you haven't got that ability internally to identify and address and resolve your own problems really swiftly, everything else disappears. And some of the examples we use, Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera.
Sure did, yep.
It had no shortage of resources. It was a public company. It could get great leadership if it wanted. It could hire great people. It could invest billions of dollars.
Long history.
Long history. But it did not identify problems, resolve them swiftly, and it did not capitalize on opportunities faster than their competitors.
Sure, I had one of those early Kodak cameras and I can tell you they were pretty average actually.
Yeah, so so the right sequence is actually, do I have this in my organization? If I'm slipping behind, if I was successful once, really successful, and now I feel like I'm losing that success, or I feel I should be having more success than I actually have, instead of just looking at product and value proposition and sales and marketing, all of those things that are absolutely required, more internally, actually, am I identifying, and the royal I, is I with my entire organization, again, 2 people, 200, 2 million, doesn't matter, am I able to execute on all this stuff by identifying and resolving problems and identifying and capitalizing on opportunities?
So you say that perhaps the startup that's got it right has innately got that capability, and a business that is successful over a long period of time has actually got that in their culture.
Absolutely. You look at a company that has failed, somewhere along the lines, even if they had lots of resource, great ideas, they started to, either they never had it, or they started to lose the ability to identify and address problems and identify and capitalize on opportunities. And so often we see a company or someone from nowhere come with nothing and have become really successful. And we talk about, we got the market right and we had this product and we concentrate on the value proposition and we put customers first and all this stuff, which I don't dismiss. It's absolutely required. But those companies also, problems came up, they resolved them. Opportunities came up, they capitalized on them. And they did that in that sequence. It's difficult to capitalize on opportunities if problems are manifesting and festering away unresolved.
And I'm sure what you're also saying around this is that these companies that rise spectacularly, but they're a one-trick pony. And at the first sort of a competitor or the problem, first side of the challenge, the failure is just as spectacular, I imagine.
And where all problems and opportunities come from is change. So what happens is they're successful for a period, something changes. New technology, new market, new competitor, consumer demands, whatever it might be, new regulatory environment. Something changes, it creates a problem and an opportunity that they then need to decide what to do and implement the decision. Now, if they have that core capability, they respond to that change. Okay, I need to decide what to do, I'm going to implement it, off I go. If this change happens, problems come up and you don't have that capability and capacity, that's why companies disappear. And when you look at, we're watching the death of some really big brands. Myer. Not just Myer, Myer's in the public eye.
Well, yeah, it's a very successful department store over time, but they haven't really been able to transition into digital space. Or
now, you talk to people
that compete with online.
They will say they haven't done a whole lot of things, but if you get to the root, they didn't identify problems and resolve them quick enough, and they haven't capitalized on opportunities quick enough.
Sure.
And their competitors come in and bite it. And so that, if you can really get a core competency of that, success is yours long term.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's it. So it's interesting too, and we haven't got time to talk about life cycle, but I know you're a big fan about talking about life cycle. And there's those businesses that kick off and sort of have it or they don't, and there's a business that sort of have it and maybe lose it, or maybe they never had it and they fail spectacularly.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of options here.
It's a complex space, and we really enjoy helping organisations solve that. If you can help them solve that, then they will be successful.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, how do people find out more about Adizes and the teachings and learnings and methodology you have to offer?
Look, the website's quite simple. It's Adizes, ADIZES.com, Adizes.com, and on there's information. There's tests you can do about the life cycle, about all these kinds of things, find out information, and I'm here to help for anybody in Australia and the Asia Pacific region. Yeah,
that's right. Fundamentally, it comes out of Dr. Adizes, yeah. So
Dr. Adizes was the founder. He's based out of Santa Barbara. Was just recently awarded one of the world's top 30 communicators, along with the Dalai Lama, the Pope, a whole lot of people. A really interesting fellow that has done some amazing things, and people like myself really love the content and enjoy sharing it with people.
And you represent the business in Australia?
Correct.
Fantastic. All right, that's really great information. Really appreciate spending time with you, Don, actually, by the way. But anyway, that's another episode done at the eCentral Business Show. I'm John Nayler.